So last week, we got a lot of new evidence from the January 6th committee, but one important thing, they revealed shocking evidence that implicated Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and his office in Donald Trump's coup plot. The committee revealed this text exchange between Johnson's chief of staff on the left of your screen and a Mike Pence staffer asking Johnson's office to pass along fake electors on January 6th, like in person, apparently. The Department of Justice is, of course, currently investigating this very plot. They've served a bunch of subpoenas on it. So Senator Johnson has tried to deny, minimize, and spin it.
Senator Johnson, how much did you know about what your chief of staff was doing with the alternate slates of electors? No, you're not. I can see your phone. I can see your screen.
Can you explain what your chief of staff was doing?
Does your chief of staff still work for you, Senator? Did you support his efforts to try to get those slates to the vice president?
No, I had no knowledge of this.
Who's the person?
I had no involvement in an alternate slate of electors. I had no idea this thing would be delivered to us. Got delivered staff to staff. My chief of staff did the right thing. Contacted the vice president's staff. They said didn't want it, so we didn't deliver it.
Who's the person?
Again, that's the end of the story.
Who's the person that delivered it to your office?
I have no idea.
Okay, heard that? 2 days after Senator Johnson's pretend phone call, he made an actual phone call to a local right-wing radio show, and what do you know? His memory improved.
I was originally sent a text at 11:36 by, your friend. I just met him, Judge Troupis. 6 minutes later, I set up a text exchange between my chief of staff and Jim, which just says, Jim Troupis, meet Sean Riley. We found out now this came from Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly's office. We couldn't even remember who delivered this to us, okay?
Okay, now that's a very different story. Now, for his part, a spokesperson for Republican Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania said, quote, Senator Johnson's statements are patently false. Mr. Kelly has not spoken to Senator Johnson for the better part of a decade. He has no knowledge of the claims Johnson is making related to the 2020 election. So what we know now is that in his first attempt to swat this all away, the senator clearly lied. Now a colleague in the House is saying he's lying again, although who to believe between the two is a tough one. And in the middle of what should be a highly contested re-election battle this year in Wisconsin, the senator and his staff have many more questions to answer about their participation in the coup attempt. Tim Miller is a former communications director for Jeb Bush's 2016 campaign, now writer at large of The Bulwark, author of Why We Did It, a travelogue from the Republican road to hell, which is just out now. Tim, it's good to have you here in the studio.
Hey, Chris, good to be with you.
I mean, you worked for politicians, right?
I did.
There's spinning and then there's lying. There's like shading the truth. He pretty clearly just flat lied. Staff to staff, no knowledge of this. Like, that wasn't true.
Well, throughout this whole process, Ron Johnson's been lying. At the Bulwark, we published an article by a Wisconsin Republican county chair, Mark Becker, back before January 6th, between the election and January 6th, where Becker called Senator Johnson and said he was disappointed in him for going along with the, stop the steal nonsense. And Johnson said to Becker on that phone call, I just have to do what I have to do. It'd be political suicide to go against the president on this. We're just going to wait and see how it turns out and everything will be fine, right? So he was lying that whole time between the election and January 6th. He knew. I think that there is reason to believe that Johnson was more involved in this than he's even letting on now, not just because he lied, obviously, but because what you're hearing from other people in Wisconsin, from staff members. And in addition to that, we keep learning this. Mike Lee, it's the same story with Mike Lee in Utah.
Yeah, Mike Lee's also another one. And I think what's important here is like this plot, which is like specifically on the fake electors and transmitting them that Johnson's implicated in, is the subject of like multiple search warrants being issued by the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice is really investigating this as a straightforward criminal matter.
For sure. And it's going to be hard to believe that some of the Johnson or other Republican Senate staffers, even from the more establishment to the Senate that really exists anymore, side, are going to be on the receiving end of some of these emails. Here's the thing with Johnson, and this is why it's always hard to tell with these sorts of senators. Like, he's obviously lying, but in the old Watergate thing, I mean, these are just not very bright guys, and right. Things got out of hand, right? So it is kind of hard to tell the extent to which.
Oh, totally, yes. But I also think, Johnson is an interesting case to me. So you've got this part of it. You've also got I don't know if you followed his vaccine stuff, but it's been some of the most aggressively irresponsible and flatly dangerous stuff we've seen from any elected politician in the country. I mean, it's really up there, right, when you rank it. He posted a COVID-19 panel focusing on vaccine skepticism. He was hugely on the hydroxychloroquine, like really dangerous stuff. And it's like, this is not the senator from a plus 30 Trump state.
No.
He's from a state that Biden won. And he acts like a guy who's just never going to have to face swing voters the rest of his life.
Now, well, look, he's a prime example of, not to plug the book, but what I write about a little bit in this book, it's bottom up. You know, Ron Johnson is dealing with a lot of going to Republican chicken dinners, going to Republican events, and all this stuff is bubbling up from the ground up. Ron Johnson, remember when he first ran, he was like a business guy who was going to be a non-culture war kind of business Republican. Yeah. He knows what is going to make these voters tick, and now the mob is in charge of him. And so that is what's happening on hydroxychloroquine. Yep. He was going out there on some of the Russia disinformation stuff and then had to back away from that when it kind of seemed right at the beginning of the Ukraine crisis that maybe the base was going to be more in the Tucker Carlson camp than kind of ended up being. And so Johnson, I think on conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory, has been following his own base. And he's got a close election this fall, but I think that right now he doesn't, for whatever reason, he doesn't feel like he has to worry about that. I think that he's irrationally confident because of his own echo chamber and because it's worked out in the past.
Yeah, and your point is well taken, which you write about in the book, about how demand-driven this all is, right? But I also think with the vaccine stuff, what became clear to me, and again, I don't know what his diet of consumption is, but it was like, as you watched him hit this, it was like, yes, he was pandering, but it also seemed clear to me that, like, he was just reading terrible information. Like, he had brainworms. And that was really concerning to me because you're watching this guy up there being like, you know, in the same way of like Trump being like, well, the Italians did this. And it's like, oh, no, you're a U.S. senator and you're up there being like, shove that hydroxychloroquine down your throat.
Yeah, he's getting bad information, and part of this is brainworms. But let me tell you what's another thing that's driving it. And I saw this time and time again when I was talking to Republicans. He's so mad at the media and at the left for going after him and these sorts of things. And he's bitter and agree, which is crazy. You think that this is crazy. You're a United States senator. Like, you're rich. Like, everything is turned up Ron Johnson. What do you have to be aggrieved about? But he is. He doesn't like to be criticized. You know, he doesn't like the way that he's been criticized. And so then when people give him information that's like, here's how you can make the elites and the MSNBC hosts look dumb, then he's like, you're speaking my language.
That's the two components of the nuclear reactor of modern reactionary politics is like huge amounts of privilege and genuine sense of grievance and victimization. And you put them together, you get Donald Trump, you get all of them. That's the thing at the core of the reactor. And Ron Johnson is very much that. Tim Miller, whose new book is Why We Did It, a travelogue from the Republican Road to Hell. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Chris.